In this picture, you can see that we have skipped way ahead, and I've got those support pieces in between the front plate and the rear plate already installed. And if you look closely, they are at 24 inches on center, and that is going to be more than adequate to support the shelving and all the totes that are going to be going on here. You can also see we've cleaned up the area quite a bit with all the tools that are now put away, but we're at a point now where we can start putting the shelving in. You'll also notice there are two purple 2x4s that are on the second shelf from the top, and a little bit of a story behind those. When the wife had a business making some wine related gifts, we had some structures that were made out of wood. Well, the wood from those was still very good wood, and we just didn't want to destroy them and throw them out, so I deconstructed those and ended up with a couple of pieces that were pretty long 2x4s, and they just need to be cut down, and the only thing wrong with them is that they were just these colors that we had. So we ended up repurposing those, which means I didn't have to cut another fresh 2x4, and it worked out. We just used those for this project, so kind of interesting with that. But all of those pieces are in, and it's just a matter now, as I said earlier, is cutting up the plywood that we have into 2-foot sections that are going to be 2 foot wide by 8 foot long, and putting them into place and cutting everything into place as needed. Once again, I did the rookie mistake of jumping way ahead with the progress on the storage bins, but what you can see here is essentially the finished product of the storage shelving unit that we put into place. Now, what I've done here is we've taken the plywood sheets that I already had, and those come in 4x8 sheets, and we just cut them down the center to make them 2x8, and then just measured each one of how large they had to be and cut them down to size so they would fit inside of the structure here. And then to secure them to the top of the studs that are supporting these, or the joists for lack of a better term, I used coarse drywall screws. I think they were 1 1/4 inch, maybe 1 1/2 inch drywall screws. That's just enough to go into the plywood and into the joists that are holding these up. You'll see this used on other projects that I work on. I really like using the coarse drywall screws to secure thin pieces of plywood to whatever, because number one, you can get a 5-pound box of 1 1/4 inch drywall screws for very cheap, or cheaper than you would deck screws, and you get a ton of those in a box. And if you're just putting stuff in to hold stuff up vertically or horizontally like you see here, the drywall screws are more than enough. You don't have to buy out nails or other high-end screws, so those work out pretty well. But you can see here that the totes fit in perfectly on the shelf, and it's very almost OCD, if you will, organization, right? And it looks really nice. At this point, we've also gone through and thrown out a bunch of stuff that we have no use for or have gotten rid of because we haven't used it in a couple of years, and just ended up with what we have here, and we have some storage totes left over underneath. So that's where we end up here, and things are looking pretty good at this point. And then finally, you can see here how the storage unit looks all the way from the front of the garage. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this project, it's a fairly large garage, but we're utilizing the space on the walls all the way up to the ceiling, which has worked out really nice. And you can also see how it's really cleared out the garage space, enough room to still work on my mountain bike that's on the right hand side there. We've got enough storage for the tractor to cut the lawn with, and I even have some space in the center there for a work area to be able to work on wood projects or what have you. So just by putting that shelving unit up and maximizing the space that we used really worked out quite well. So with that, that's going to close out this entire project and series, and it's time to move on to the next project. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace out.